and to make sure that they are punished. Sometimes that means a slap on the wrist, sometimes that means life in prison, sometimes that means even worse. For the most heinous of crimes, you have to do this to make sure that society feels safe, whether that's a mass murder or, well, a mass murder, which is what's happening here when 70 innocent civilians perished when an Army Black Hawk helicopter, inexplicably flying a mile-off course and twice as high as they're legally allowed to, smashed into the side of a commercial airline, killing women, children, Olympians, people from Russia and China. I mean, it could be a huge international incident. This kind of stuff is extremely dangerous. Much less, Americans must be confident that when they fly, that they are safe. And this is really important to the economy. This is really important to a functional country. So why the hell did this happen? Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump doesn't mince words on these things. He was very, very angry when this happened. When President Trump was asked what occurred here, because as you can see, I'm just going to pause the video, the helicopter literally targets the plane. There's no other way to explain it. The helicopter flies right into it. The plane is burning bright like a star in the sky. There's no way they didn't see it. What the hell's going on here? Here's what President Trump had to say.
Okay.
Mr. President, to be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have. I don't know. Incompetence might have played a role. We'll let you know that. But we want the most competent people. We don't care what race they are. We want the most competent people, especially in those positions. And you're talking about extremely complex things. And if they don't have a great brain, a great power of the brain, they're not going to be very good at what they do, and bad things will happen.
Incompetence and DEI may have played a role, and then Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, the Pentagon, who would be, of course, responsible for which pilots are doing what, says we need to have the best and the brightest in every position possible. The era of DEI is gone. This is in the hours in the aftermath of this deadly, horrible explosion, attack, whatever you want to call it. Someone's responsible. Ladies and gentlemen, they released two names of the pilot, but the third name, a female, was kept from the American public. Now, finally, we know that the third pilot is 28-year-old Rebecca Lobach, the third soldier inside the doomed Black Hawk during the D.C. crash that clearly was caused by the helicopter. How do I know that? Because I've spoken with a dozen pilots who said clearly the Black Hawk helicopter was warned multiple times not to hit that plane. They were not flying where they were supposed to be. They were not flying on a path they were allowed to fly on. Something horrible went on inside of this helicopter. U.S. Army has identified a female soldier doomed Black Hawk helicopter crash in the American Airlines flight, killing 67 people. Rebecca Lobach of Durham, North Carolina, was assigned to the 12th Aviation Battalion in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and had served since 2019. The Army had initially refused to identify Lobach at the request of her family. Why would that be? And this is the problem, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see here, Rebecca Lobach was an aide to Joe Biden. Rebecca Lobach served as an escort at the White House. Rebecca Lobach served inside of not just the Army, but the Joe Biden administration. It's very curious. Why would somebody who's clearly not a full-time pilot be allowed to fly during and over some of the most dangerous airspace in the world? Lobach served as a White House social media aide during the Biden administration, and you can see here, was taking touristy photos at the press dais inside of the White House. And there are photos of her and Joe Biden together. Here she is with Joe Biden. So what the hell's going on here, exactly? I mean, I'm not saying that, every person in the military must swear allegiance to one politician or another, but I am saying that if you're doing multiple jobs, if you're splitting your time and you're not a full-time pilot, why the hell are you allowed to fly over Washington, D.C.? But it gets even worse, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that they wouldn't release her name caused a lot of people to speculate. The fact that she was probably somebody who didn't like President Trump, and obviously you just have to assume this, right? If she works for Joe Biden, she doesn't like President Trump. If she works for Joe Biden, she has a very specific worldview. You can't work for Joe Biden, who is the most atrocious, woke, radically extremist progressive president of our lifetime and not hold those views. You wouldn't mesh, right? And she wasn't there to agitate. She enjoyed it. She has a bunch of squealing photos next to Joe Biden was sitting there, working with Joe Biden. Here she is with Joe Biden, okay? Again, I'm not saying this doesn't mean she shouldn't serve in the military, but I am saying that why did they not give out her name? And there's no record of this 28-year-old online. So we have the Matthew Thomas Crooks, the Trump assassin in Butler. We have the same paradigm happening here, where for some inexplicable reason, young left-wing person, Matthew Thomas Crooks was a donor to the Democrat Party, right? A Biden supporter. They have zero social media record. Was this an opportunity for the family to go and scrub and scrape all of Rebecca Lobach's social media? Would that social media presence have shown progressive left-wing anti-Trump views and maybe advocating for DEI in the military? Female Black Hawk helicopter soldier from D.C. Crass identified as former White House aide. I'm telling you that I spoke with a Black Hawk pilot who told me that there's absolutely no way that somebody with only 500 flight hours should be flying over Washington Reagan National Airport. This is the most number of VIPs, world leaders, senators, members of Congress, members of the administration, members of the media, celebrities, tourists. This is the busiest, possible area, flight-wise, in the world, arguably, when it comes to VIPs coming in and out, when it comes to just regular flight patterns. Reagan is a very tough airport to land at. It's the shortest landing strip in the country, actually. It's very, very sacred airspace, right? You have the White House there, you have the Capitol there. You should only have the single most qualified, experienced pilots flying these routes, not a 28-year-old who is just doing this part-time and doesn't have any experience. It doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't make any sense. There were two other people, two other soldiers killed in the crash. Andrew Eves, who is 39, and Ryan Austin O'Hara is 28. I guess there's a lot of questions left. I'm not sitting here placing blame necessarily on one person or another. What I am doing is asking some pretty obvious questions, which is why? Right? Why? She was the pilot. She wasn't just a crew member. She was the individual flying the plane. So why? Honestly, how many evaluations did she pass because she weren't allowed to fail or because her instructors looked the other way? This is why Trump called out DEI immediately. Trump knew. Trump was briefed, obviously, he's the commander-in-chief. Why did Rebecca Lobach's family wipe all of her social media accounts before revealing her identity? These are the questions that people are asking online. Rebecca Lobach's social media have traces of extreme Trump derangement syndrome or anger towards the MAGA movement. Why was her entire social media footprint wiped out? Just like with Matthew Crooks, entire social media footprint wiped out. People are asking these questions online. As we had to wait 4 days for Rebecca Lobach to be ID'd. She had no deployments, yet she's flying in what is effectively a war zone above Washington, D.C., right? In the sense that there are so many different planes, it's such a high-intensity area. Why are you doing training flights there and not the Panhandle? I'm not saying this person shouldn't be allowed to ever fly. Nor am I saying that, that because she supported Joe Biden, which she clearly did, that means she's disqualified for military service. I'm saying, why not do these flights in the Panhandle in Florida? Why not do these flights over the Sierra Nevada desert? If she needs to be trained, why are you doing it in the most dangerous possible area? It doesn't make any sense. And then when you see what the helicopter actually did, with no evasive maneuvers at all, even when the helicopter was told time and time again from the tower, get the hell out of there, watch out for that plane, it was told time and time again. It didn't do anything. It leads to more questions than we have answers. And there is zero. Here was a White House social media aide under Joe Biden, yet she has zero social media presence. Was the delay in releasing her name to wipe clean all of her social media? That's what everybody's saying. During the last 4 years, she worked at the White House for Joe Biden. She was training to be a helicopter pilot with the 12th Aviation Battalion. She was 28 years old. And, clearly progressive views, right? You can see here. She's clearly progressive. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This doesn't mean she can't serve our country. It doesn't mean she should be disqualified, immediately run out of the military. But it does beg like a very serious question, which is why was somebody who's so inexperienced flying such a dangerous path? And then, more importantly, what the hell happened with the helicopter? Because even with that inexperience, you'd assume that the other two pilots maybe would be able to take control, would be able to prevent the crash itself in an emergency situation. Where were they, right? And why was the helicopter veered so wildly off course? You can see in multiple clips that the helicopter was clearly doing like a beeline for that plane. You can see it, like for 60 straight seconds, the helicopter and the plane like flying at each other. Something is off here. She goes from White House social media age to flying dangerous Black Hawk helicopters at night. Yeah, exactly. She's a staunch supporter of Joe Biden. Her social media has been scrubbed. Her social media showed obvious extreme left-wing progressive opinions. Rebecca's not alive anymore, along with so many more. The family needed to withhold her name so that they could wipe her politics off of social media. It took them a few days. I'm sure you all understand. You're not angry enough. I mean, I've stated pretty clearly what I believe, right? I'd like to get my pilot's license someday. I sure as hell, like, let me tell you, I have buddies who have private planes. I have buddies who like are pilots, right, on their small planes that they own. And I think it's really cool. I'd love to get my pilot's license someday. I'm not going to be training over Manhattan. I'm not going to be like trying to get my license inside of the most dangerous airspace in the world. I will literally find an empty field in order to begin my flight training. I'll probably start obviously on a computer, right? Yeah. Rebecca Lobach was in ROTC training in 2018. How is she flying government continuity missions in a Black Hawk in Washington, D.C. 6 years later as a captain? Makes a lot of questions. A lot of questions. I mean, it really does beg the question, how much DEI was at place here? And I think that's a question that still needs to have answered. But you can tell that President Trump knows what's up because of the way he immediately responded, signing executive orders against DEI in the military, going in hard against DEI in the military. You can tell that the Pentagon knew what's up. Immediately, Pete Hegseth saying, this is a problem in our military. And then the way that the family behaved, the way that they behaved to effectively erase her from social media, even though when she worked in social media, like that just, again, it's very suspicious, and it causes people to say, wow, you're hiding something obviously, right? The 28-year-old clearly had social media. You're hiding something from us. You're lying to us. You lied to us again. So I really hope the White House comes forward with what's really happening here. Like, I really hope the White House is able to reveal, and the Pentagon is able to reveal, like, recordings from the cockpit, who made the mistakes, so we can really get to the bottom of this story, because right now, nothing is adding up. It seems like someone is clearly, obviously lying to us to probably protect the DEI regime.